everybody, to today's session. Excited to jump in. We're going to be talking about beyond headcount, how smart brands are redefining this agent productivity. We got Arman from TalentPop. Arman, thanks for joining. How are you?
Appreciate you having me here, Gabe. I'm doing well. Excited for this conversation today.
Yeah, look, I know you've been around the space for a long time, so I think it'll be fun to dive in. But before we do that, maybe just tell me, the audience real quick, a little about yourself and what you guys are doing over there at TalentPop.
Yeah, I mean, we've been at it for about 5 years. We focus on customer experience for e-commerce brands, so helping brands with recruiting, onboarding, and managing customer service agents for their teams. We've been at it for a while. We've done a really good job servicing the e-commerce landscape, and despite some of these challenging times that we're experiencing right now, we're very much focused ahead on just finding ways that we can better serve this audience and looking at ways where we can, support what their current needs are around CX, implement new AI initiatives, whether it's, AI agents or new help desks that have some of these capabilities, being able to look at that, and then also focusing on CX as a revenue generating channel. So that's a lot of what we've been focusing on in the day-to-day at TalentPop, and then outside of TalentPop, just had a baby girl, 3 months old, so been occupying a bunch of my time outside of the work.
Congratulations. That's exciting. Person, is that the number one or is that number two or is that?
Baby girl, first girl,
Oh my
first,
heavens.
yeah, baby.
Okay, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, congratulations. That's a big lifestyle change. Um, well, I'm sure you can even bring some of that experience into the conversation today. Yeah, so you guys have been at it for a while and so many experiences you kind of help brands set up this CX transformation. So interested to see if I can peel back the layers and steal some of your secrets. A lot of brands are asking out there as I dive in here, Armand, is this concept of metrics. They want to move beyond traditional metrics. Sometimes they get stuck on the nitty gritty stuff,
Yeah.
and they get lost in the weeds. I'm curious if there's a couple metrics that you're seeing people kind of focus on, more innovative brands, to really get that North Star and measure true productivity. Thoughts on the right metrics?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at, your customer service performance a little bit more, organic from the high level. You can't look at just, the response time, resolution time,
Right,
CSAT
right.
metrics, which everyone looks at. They're important to look at, but it doesn't tell the full picture. What I would say is really exciting with the capabilities around AI is being able to review sentiment analysis of the
Mm,
conversation. So almost like an AI QA score that is evaluating how the customer service agent handled the interaction or how the AI agent handled the interaction, and being able to provide a score around that. And then another one that I've seen recently some brands start to adapt is more of a customer experience score, which is like blending some of these metrics together around kind of the sentiment, CSAT, empathy,
mm.
emotional intelligence, resolution, and creating almost a metric around how that customer experience was delivered by the customer service agent or the AI agent, which
I like
I
that.
think is
I like
really
that.
unique. And I do think that is where we should be heading rather than
Yeah.
focusing on the standard metrics that, everyone has been able to see at this time.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, kind of a roll up, almost like the customer service, customer experience metric. I like that. Um, people ask a lot about coaching and what the role, what it will look like here in the future. I'm curious. You guys deal a lot with the rep side of the house, and I assume coaching is always part of the conversation. Do you see it evolving in this AI powered era? Are there any red flags leaders should watch out for as they kind of move to this next generation of how you actually provide really good coaching to teams and reps?
Yeah, I mean, what I always share with my team is I want the data to help tell the story, but not make the decision.
Mm,
So what I mean by that specifically, we use a lot of, AI in our day-to-day when it comes
sure.
to coaching oversight, just to kind of determine how well did a team leader handle an interaction with a customer service agent? Did they go over the discussion points? Did they ask the right questions? And, being able to use AI to help with kind of how that conversation was navigated, I think can be very, very valuable. I would say the red flag would be overly relying on the
Yeah.
data and not understanding the human element of, hey, someone may have had a bad day this week, or they're going through something
Mm,
that, is outside of the norm, and being able to still have those open and human conversations, because that's what it really comes down to when it comes to building relationships with your team members is yes, the data should help tell the story, but it shouldn't help make the decision
Yeah,
and be the final version of the decision. So I think being able to balance that well is what a great leader, does for their CX team. And if you're overly reliant on the data and you let that dictate your full direction, you might be leaning on the wrong side of things.
I like that. I like that. There's this balance. Yeah, I think people are, obviously automation, they try to go so far down one direction and it's like, hey, you just automated the human out of it. And
Exactly.
point, there's so many other elements that I think go involved in that. How do you find a little bit of that balance? And data informs and the human maybe kind of gets the commitment or the final say. I like that. Um, this balance of efficiency and empathy or human and automation is certainly as I was kind of saying, is on everybody's mind. How are you with some of the brands and implementations you're going with? How are you starting to find that balance when it comes to scaling an organization, thinking of empathy or efficiency or human and AI?
Yeah, I would say that every brand should have their own unique approach to how they want to blend AI and CX and the human element of it together.
Okay.
Some brands might have interaction types that are, more tier one requests that should probably be handled by AI agents that can certainly answer the question directly. But for certain brands, you want to also establish that human-based connection. You want to get to know some of the customers that are interacting with you or prospects that are reaching out for any pre-purchase questions. And there may be certain types of inquiries and, questions that come up that it might just make sense for the human to handle that interaction. And again, AI can certainly help with those interactions, but every brand should be conscious around what that looks like and what that blend between the two should be. And I think that it comes down to, what do we want the customer experience to look like at the end of the day? Do we want to create a more frictionless
Mm,
experience where the customer is going to get the best possible, experience? Do we just want to make sure that we take care of the customer, right? Different brands view that a little bit differently. And I think brands that are wanting to lean a little bit more into the human experience, I do think that's going to become more of the differentiator over the
yeah,
next 5 years than just implementing AI at all costs. I think there has to be a responsible balance between both of the efforts. And you have to also, at the end of the day, pay attention to what the end customer wants. If you can
yeah.
do that as best as possible for your brand, I think you're making the right decisions on how to blend that perfectly.
That's a good way to frame it. Kind of almost go with the end in mind, right? To bring back where that balance might be. Is there a place where you feel like people should start? I know there's so many people who are. I was talking to Steve the other day. He's like, I'm feeling like maybe we sit on the sidelines until this plays out a little bit. There's just a lot of noise around AI and
Yeah.
different priorities. Maybe we'll wait till Gen 2 comes around to jump in. But for those who want to kind of dip their toe in it, is there certain areas where you're kind of like, hey, this is some of the places where we're seeing some wins when it comes to kind of more simple or obvious places to get that AI or automation in place?
Yeah, I mean, very simple tier one requests are a great starting point. Where is my order? Sizing related questions, things like that, where
Yeah.
you have the clear answer to it. It's inside of an SOP or, in your knowledge base. You just want to be able to present that information to a customer that, feels organic. I think, AI agents are able to do that effectively, especially if you're giving the right brand voice, brand tone to how you
Yeah.
want them to interact with the end customer. So I would say that's certainly a place. And I would say brands that might be a little bit more hesitant around the AI autonomously answering questions. They also are the ideas of having kind of the AI assist tools within some of the help desks that
Mm.
have been very valuable that, you can have essentially the human agent interact with and review the response that
Mm.
the AI agent provides internally, almost like a co-pilot,
Yep.
and then being able to leverage that to answer the question. I think that's a really great way to kind of taste the capabilities of AI and be able to implement that in the CX function and doing it in a way where it doesn't feel like you're only letting AI answer everything. You can also use AI to just help improve the efficiency of your human agents.
Yeah, yeah, which I think that's probably that you're right. That I appreciate you mentioning that last point. I think so many people are moving towards the customer facing AI, which to your point, I think there's some great low hanging fruit there. But I'm seeing and hearing more people start to talk through this idea of like the agent assistant tools and getting more robust there. And I think there's a lot that can be done. That's going to be a fun frontier, I think, as we move forward.
Yeah. I mean, think of a world where
Mm,
you have access to all of the data points and you're using AI to kind of create a customer profile. And if it's being done inside of the help desk, then you can use AI to present, hey, with this interaction and this customer, these are might be some things that you want to share with
mm.
them in the interaction.
Yeah, really cool, really cool. Look, I think that's probably less talked about, but I think really powerful. I appreciate bringing that up. Last couple before I kind of let you go today, I'm curious. You obviously work with a lot of brands, and any it could be a customer example, a story, or just an insight that you've seen where you've been able to kind of see agent performance really spike, or they've been able to accomplish really some great things, and maybe the reason behind it could be talent pop, but some other thing that maybe kind of is driving that. But I'm curious if there's something that comes to mind when you think of your experience and some surprising insight the brands have been able to do to achieve great results.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of like one insight that I've experienced that relates to something that we talked about earlier is brands may not be focused on just driving the highest percentage automation
Yeah.
at some point. And I've seen like, different help desk communicate like the percentage automation goal. And I think what it should be really more focused on, we want to help you optimize your customer experience using the blend of AI and humans. And, from what I've seen kind of specifically with examples of brands that we worked with, sometimes they actually want to look at reducing the automation goal rather than increasing the automation
Oh
goal.
wow.
They've already established, a certain threshold. They might say, hey, we want to actually take this specific cohort of questions and have our humans handle it for
Oh,
these
cool.
reasons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think sometimes you look at the vanity metrics, a little bit more, you pay a little bit more attention to it, where at the end of the day, what really matters is just delivering the best customer experience, whether AI is going to do the better job in a certain area, or if the human is going to be able to do a better job in that area. Being able to kind of, think through what does the end customer want and creating that best experience for them. That's what I've seen in a couple of use cases be the best. We have one client specifically that we took that approach. We first, scaled them up and we automated, I think we got to like 50% of their interactions. And then they came back and
Good
said, hey,
product.
we actually want to reduce this number for these reasons. So
I
that was
love
a
that.
very interesting insight that I think is important to share with a lot of CX leaders.
Yeah, yeah. Look, that's you don't hear that one as much. Everyone's always trying to automate everything.
Because you're going from zero to a certain number rather than a certain number, maybe looking at it down. I think as we get more into the evolution and adoption of AI, you're going to see, CX leaders review the interactions a little bit more and think, more critically about the customer experience. So we might
I
be a
love
little
that.
bit early to the ball game with that insight, but I do see that being able to come into place in
But
certain
look,
use
yeah,
cases.
I think it's back to finding the right balance. I don't know if there's ever a black or a white. It's like how do we find for our business what that right balance is? And I'm glad to hear some people even ratcheting it back a little bit. Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate the talk track today. That you got a lot of people on who, in some cases feel overwhelmed. They're doing always challenged to do more with less. Budgets are cut down. They can't get to the this or that event. Some feeling alone at times. Anything from a leave behind or advice that you'd kind of give these CX leaders that are just trying to navigate the ever-changing environment that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the CX community is only growing right now.
Yeah.
So, staying on top of the trends, a lot of thought leaders on LinkedIn and, different verticals that are trying to communicate what are some of the new insights. There's a lot of great conferences that are out there that are talking about CX, and I encourage people to stay
I love that.
educated on it, but also, again, focus on your end customers, focus on what they ultimately want, and make sure, and this is a really good point that I see a lot that doesn't happen. Make sure that your CX teams are communicating across the organization
Mm,
with, the brands that you work with. And I do sometimes see that CX teams kind of get into their own silos. And I do
yeah.
believe that the best organizations find ways to merge CX with all different functions of the business because you are the first point of contact with the customer. Those insights should be shared proactively with the marketing team, with operations, with e-commerce teams, to be able to make sure that everyone is aligned to what our customer thinks and where the puck is eventually going and what they are looking for in the future.
I love that. Yeah, look, I think you got to find more ways to bear your bust to get some of these CX insights. They're so valuable for marketing. They're so valuable for some of the other product, for example. It can make a huge difference. And man, we still struggle with that, I think, across the board. Awesome. Well, Arman, that was fun. Great talk track. Real, I think, specific, real advice. I think how companies can start to think about this just a little bit different. So again, appreciate you taking the time. And for the audience, hopefully you'll have a fantastic day.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me here. Great conversation and look forward to keeping our conversation moving forward.
Thank you. Bye-bye.